Exclusive by Slays.
Good morning, everyone. Our topic for today is program development life cycle. When we want to develop a program using a programming language, we follow the sequence of steps. These steps are called phases in program development. The program development life cycle is a set of steps or phases that are used to develop a program in any programming language. Generally, program development lifecycle contains 6 phases. They are as follows: program definition, problem analysis, algorithm development, coding and documentation, testing and debugging, and lastly is the maintenance. As you can see, in figure 1, we have here a cycle of steps. Okay, first, program definition. Second, problem analysis. 3, algorithm development. 4, coding and documentation. The 5th one is testing and debugging. The 6th one is maintenance. Then it will continue back to the problem definition. So this is the program development life cycle. Let's start with problem definition. In this phase, we define the problem statement. We decide the boundaries of the problem. In this phase, we need to understand the problem statement. What is our requirement? What should be the output of the problem solution? These are defined in this first phase of the program development cycle. So here we are going to define or identify what would be the requirements, what will be the output for the solution or the expected output. Here, also in this phase, in the first problem definition phase, we're going to define we're going to understand the problem. We're going to dissect the problem. So here, problem analysis. Next is the problem analysis in the phase 2. We determine the requirements like variables. For example, here in example here, so the problem is to compute and display the sum of 2 numbers. So for instance, in this one here, we're going to decide the boundaries of the problem. So here we need to resolve only the sum of 2 numbers. What is the requirement? Of course, the requirement is the numbers, the 2 numbers. The 2 numbers is the requirement. Now, in analysis phase, okay, same problem. Phase 2, we determine the requirements like variables. In this problem, we will be having here 3 variables. So first, variable is num1. Second variable is num2. And the last variable will be the sum. So what are these variables? This would be variable that this would be a letter for n. Since we have two numbers, we could have n1. We have n2. In naming variable, it should be has meaning for us to understand or remember the function of a variable. So the variable itself is just like a container in which you are going to put a value in it. Okay, so this one, functions, determine the function and others to solve the problem. That means we gather the required resources to solve the problem, define the problem definition phase. As defined in the problem definition phase, we also determine the bounds of the solution. So what will be the solution here? Since we have the two number now, we need input for the two number. The solution would be, we need to compute for the sum. Sum is equals to num1, 1 plus num2. Okay, so next we have here is, in the third phase, we have algorithm development. During this phase, we develop a step-by-step procedure to solve the problem using specification given in the previous phase. This phase is very important for program development. That means we write the solution in step-by-step statement. So here, an example of writing an algorithm is step 1. Start. Based on the problem. And next we have step 2. Input, input the two numbers and store it in variable num1 and num2. Step 3. For step number 3, we're going to compute for the sum of two numbers using two numbers by adding. Compute for the sum of two numbers by adding num1 and num2. Now, once we're done with this, step 4, here, we're going to display the sum. Display the sum. Since we have here the sum, or display the value for sum. Then step 5, N. Short. Wait. So this is an example of an algorithm based on the problem provided earlier. Next we have is the coding and documentation phase. This phase uses programming language to write or implement the actual instruction for the steps defined in previous phase. In this phase, we construct actual program. That means that we will write the program to solve the given problem using languages. So it depends on us on what are we going to use with the when we are going to write for the code. So we will decide whether it's Java, C++, or C or other languages. Under testing and debugging, so why do we need to test? During this phase, we check whether the code written in the previous step is solving the specified problem or not. We are testing because we want to see if the result is accurate. Okay? Meaning to say the result of the computation is correct. If we'll be saying sum, it gives us the value of sum. If we are talking about difference, it will provide us the value of the two numbers, which is minus, using the minus operation, or subtraction operation, then it will provide us the difference. So again and again, just like um, the system cashier in the malls. So the system itself, if we or at the grocery store, yung sa cashier, if we're going to buy an item, like 2 items, and it costs 1 peso, and the other item costs 2 pesos, then if we're going to sum up, meaning to say item 1 is amounting 1 peso, item 2 amounting 2 pesos. Okay, so of course, when we're talking about total, it gives us the sum. It provides us the sum, so the total is 3 pesos. Okay. Here in testing, we are before the system in the cashier or the system for the cashiering is deployed, test yan. They will be testing it so that to check that the computation is accurate. If you're the customer, are you going to pay for the 2 items, 1 peso and 2 pesos, and it costs you 10 pesos? Would you pay for that? So the answer would be no. Okay. Then, meaning to say, if the total or the computation is not accurate, meaning to say there is something wrong. Meaning to say there is an error. That's why we will be debugging. So that means we test the program whether it is solving the problem for various input data values or not. We test that whether it is providing the desired output or not. So debugging is checking if there is an error. If no error, then the program will run smoothly. And accurately, it will provide an accurate answer. However, there are some instances that there is no problem or there is no error with the program. However, the result of the computation is wrong. Meaning to say you have to review the computation part or the processing part. Maintenance. Why do we need to maintain? So just like taking medication, why do we need to maintain? Just to keep us sounded, healthy. Okay, if we are high blood, we need to take our medication like losartan for us to normalize our blood, for our to normalize the blood circulation. Okay, if there is high in sugar, what will be the maintenance? So I think there is something for the to reduce the sugar. I don't know, which I don't know. So just like maintenance with the medicines, it's like the same with maintenance with the program development life cycle. So during this phase, the program is actively used by the user. If any enhancement found in this phase, all the phases are to be repeated. That's why we are going to go to the first step, second step, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. If there is something for enhancement, we need to repeat all the steps. We need to identify the problem. Number two, analyze it again. Then number three, what is number three? Write or develop an algorithm. Number four, recode your program. Number five, test it because there is something that needs to be enhanced. You need to test whether the requirements are being met. And four, again, maintenance. So kaya bumabalik siya sa cycle. That's why it is called as program development life cycle because there is an iteration if the need arises. So during this phase, the program is actively used by the user. If enhancement found in this phase, all the phases are to be repeated to make the enhancement. That means that this phase, the solution program is used by the end user. If the user encounters any problem or wants to enhance the program, then we need to repeat all the phases from starting so that the encountered problem is solved or enhanced as added. So here, so that is the maintenance phase. So for instance, we have here an example of a problem in which like the amount of the amount of exchange rate is 45 pesos. So exchange rate, exchange rate is 45 pesos. Now, this is just an example or simple example of enhancing. Okay, so if we are going to compute for the exchange rate, say what is our input? Input is dollar. Okay, so the formula for peso to dollar is input dol over exchange rate. Now, in this example, if we are going to enhance, okay, say there is changes with this one, say from 45 it changes to 50, then you need to change it, you need to update it. And say for instance, the formula is change or there is something that needs to be inserted in the formula. Let's say this is no longer the existing formula, then you need to enhance it. So this is the minimal example of maintenance. So I've already discussed the 6 phases of the program development life cycle. Again, it do starts with the problem development, program or problem analysis, algorithm development, coding and documentation, testing and debugging, maintenance. Then again and again, if there is something to be enhanced, it will go back to number 1, which is problem definition. And it cycles back to number 6 if the enhancement is already resolved based on the requirements of the end users, then it will stop here. Then no need for another analysis for the problem and so on. So that ends the lecture for program development life cycle. So if you have questions, kindly write or comment out in a particular part of the video. Just comment out what about your questions and anything that could enhance the content. You may write down your comments and suggestions. Okay, thank you for watching. Bye. Thank you for watching. See you around.